more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he who receives a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones only a cup of cold water in the name of a disciple, assuredly, I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward. Chapter 11. Now it came to pass, when Jesus finished commanding his 12 disciples, that he departed from there to teach and to preach in their cities. And when John had heard in prison about the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples, and said to him, Are you the coming one, or do we look for another? Jesus answered and said to them, Go and tell John the things which you hear and see. The blind see, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he who is not offended because of me. As they departed, Jesus began to say to the multitudes concerning John, What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man clothed in soft garments? Indeed, those who wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way before you. Assuredly, I say to you, among those born of women, there has not risen one greater than John the Baptist. But he who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to receive it, he is Elijah who is to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. But to what shall I liken this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling to their companions and saying, We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We mourned to you, and you did not lament. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Look, a glutton and a winebibber, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is justified by her children. Then he began to rebuke the cities in which most of his mighty works had been done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in the day of judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, who are exalted to heaven, will be brought down to Hades. For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say to you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for you. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and prudent, and have revealed them to babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in your sight. All things have been delivered to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and the one to whom the Son wills to reveal him. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Chapter 12. At that time Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry, and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. But he said to them, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that in this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath. Now when he had departed from there, he went into their synagogue. And behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? That they might accuse him. Then he said to them, What man is there among you who has one sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not lay hold of it and lift it out? Of how much more value, then, is a man than a sheep? Therefore it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and it was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and plotted against him, how they might destroy him. But when Jesus knew it, he withdrew from there, and great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all. Yet he warned them not to make him known, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, Behold my servant, whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will declare justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel, nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and smoking flax he will not quench, till he sends forth justice to victory, and in his name Gentiles will trust. Then one was brought to him who was demon-possessed, blind and mute, and he healed him, so that the blind and mute man both spoke and saw. And all the multitudes were amazed and said, Could this be the Son of David? Now when the Pharisees heard it, they said, This fellow does not cast out demons except by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons. But Jesus knew their thoughts, and said to them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? And if I cast out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore they shall be your judges. But if I cast out demons by the Spirit of God, surely the kingdom of God has come upon you. Or how can one enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods, unless he first binds the strong man, and then he will plunder his house? He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters abroad. Therefore I say to you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven men, but the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven men. Anyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man, it will be forgiven him. But whoever speaks against the Holy Spirit, it will not be forgiven him, either in this age or in the age to come. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree bad and its fruit bad, for a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. A good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, brings forth good things, and an evil man, out of the evil treasure, brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and indeed, a greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and indeed, a greater than Solomon is here. When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest and finds none. Then he says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when he comes, he finds it empty, swept, and put in order. Then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. So shall it also be with this wicked generation. While he was still talking to the multitudes, behold, his mother and brothers stood outside, seeking to speak with him. Then one said to him, Look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak with you. But he answered and said to the one who told him, Who is my mother, and who are my brothers? And he stretched out his hand toward his disciples and said, Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. Chapter 13. On the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea, and great multitudes were gathered together to him, so that he got into a boat and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. Then he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some fell on stony places, where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up, because they had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. But others fell on good ground, and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And the disciples came and said to him, Why do you speak to them in parables? He answered and said to them, Because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has, will be taken away from him. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, Hearing you will hear, and shall not understand, and seeing you will see, and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you, that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. Therefore hear the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom, and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who received seed by the wayside. But he who received the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word, and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. Now he who received seed among the thorns is he who hears the word, and the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becomes unfruitful. But he who receives seed on the good ground is he who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. The servant said to him, Do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, No, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, First gather together the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. Another parable he spoke to them, The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till it was all leavened. All these things Jesus spoke to the multitude in parables, and without a parable he did not speak to them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, saying, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things kept secret from the foundation of the world. Then Jesus sent the multitude away, and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, saying, Explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said to them, He who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of this age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid, and for joy over it he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was cast into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which, when it was full, they drew to shore, and they sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but threw the bad away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus said to them, Have you understood all these things? They said to him, Yes, Lord. Then he said to them, Therefore every scribe, instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven, is like a householder who brings out of his treasure things new and old. Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished these parables, that he departed from there. When he had come to his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, Where did this man get this wisdom and these mighty works? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Where then did this man get all these things? So they were offended at him. But Jesus said to them, A prophet is not without honor, except in his own country, and in his own house. Now he did not do many mighty works there, because of their unbelief. Chapter 14. At that time Herod the Tetrarch heard the report about Jesus, and said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore these powers are at work in him." For Herod had laid hold of John, and bound him, and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had said to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." And although he wanted to put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was celebrated, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Therefore he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. So she, having been prompted by her mother, said, "Give me John the Baptist hid here on a platter." And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, because of the oaths, and because of those who sat with him, he commanded it to be given to her. So he sent and had John beheaded in prison. And his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. Then his disciples came and took away the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus. When Jesus heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them, and healed their sick. When it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food." But Jesus said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish." He said, "Bring them here to me." Then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments that remained. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent out into all that surrounding region, brought to him all who were sick, and begged him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched it were made perfectly well. Chapter 15. Then the scribes and Pharisees, who were from Jerusalem, came to Jesus, saying, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread." He answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, Whoever says to his father or mother, Whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift to God. Then he need not honor his father or mother. Thus you have made the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition. Hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, These people draw near to me with their mouth, and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. When he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, Hear and understand. Not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man. Then his disciples came and said to him, Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying? But he answered and said, Every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into a ditch. Then Peter answered and said to him, Explain this parable to us. So Jesus said, Are you also still without understanding? Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, Send her away, for she cries out after us. But he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, Yes, Lord. Yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. Jesus departed from there, skirted the Sea of Galilee, and went up on the mountain and sat down there. Then great multitudes came to him, having with them the lame, blind, mute, maimed, and many others, and they laid them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. So the multitude marveled when they saw the mute speaking, the maimed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they glorified the God of Israel. Now Jesus called his disciples to himself and said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days, and have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way. Then his disciples said to him, Where could we get enough bread in the wilderness to fill such a great multitude? Jesus said to them, How many loaves do you have? And they said, 7, and a few little fish. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples. And the disciples gave to the multitude. So they all ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets full of the fragments that were left. Now those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. And he sent away the multitude, got into the boat, and came to the region of Magdala. Chapter 16. Then the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and testing him, asked that he would show them a sign from heaven. He answered and said to them, When it is evening, you say, It will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, It will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and threatening. Hypocrites! You know how to discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them and departed. Now when his disciples had come to the other side, they had forgotten to take bread. Then Jesus said to them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, O you of little faith, why do you reason among yourselves, because you have brought no bread? Do you not yet understand, or remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000, and how many baskets you took up? Nor the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many large baskets you took up? How is it you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread, but to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees. When Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, But who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that he was Jesus the Christ. From that time Jesus began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised the 3rd day. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord, this shall not happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. Then Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. Assuredly, I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Chapter 17. Now after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John his brother, led them up on a high mountain by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. Then Peter answered and said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out of the cloud, saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their faces and were greatly afraid. But Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise, and do not be afraid. When they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. Now as they came down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, Tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man is risen from the dead. And his disciples asked him, saying, Why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? Jesus answered and said to them, Indeed, Elijah is coming first, and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. And when they had come to the multitude, a man came to him, kneeling down to him, and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is an epileptic, and suffers severely. For he often falls into the fire, and often into the water. So I have brought him to your disciples, but they could not cure him. Then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him here to me. And Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, Why could we not cast it out? So Jesus said to them, Because of your unbelief, for assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. Now while they were staying in Galilee, Jesus said to them, The Son of Man is about to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and the third day he will be raised up. And they were exceedingly sorrowful. When they had come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax came to Peter and said, Does your teacher not pay the temple tax? He said, Yes. And when he had come into the house, Jesus anticipated him, saying, What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers? Peter said to him, From strangers. Jesus said to him, Then the sons are free. Nevertheless, lest we offend them, go to the sea, cast in a hook, and take the fish that comes up first. And when you have opened its mouth, you will find a piece of money. Take that and give it to them for me and you. Chapter 18. At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, Who then is greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Then Jesus called a little child to him, set him in the midst of them, and said, Assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses, for offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes. If your hand or foot causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life lame or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye, rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell fire. Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. For the Son of Man has come to save that which was lost. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep, and one of them goes astray, does he not leave the 99 and go to the mountains to seek the one that is straying? And if he should find it, assuredly I say to you, he rejoices more over that sheep than over the 99 that did not go astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. Moreover, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he hears you, you have gained your brother. But if he will not hear, take with you 1 or 2 more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he refuses to hear them, tell it to the church. But if he refuses even to hear the church, let him be to you like a heathen and a tax collector. Assuredly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again I say to you, that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Therefore the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. And when he had begun to settle accounts, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was not able to pay, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and that payment be made. The servant therefore fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. Then the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay you all. And he would not, but went and threw him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were very grieved, and came and told their master all that had been done. Then his master, after he had called him, said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry, and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. So my heavenly Father also will do to you if each of you, from his heart, does not forgive his brother his trespasses. Chapter 19. Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished these sayings, that he departed from Galilee and came to the region of Judea beyond the Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. The Pharisees also came to him, testing him, and saying to him, Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? And he answered and said to them, Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh? So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let not man separate. They said to him, Why then did Moses command to give a certificate of divorce, and to put her away? He said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. And whoever marries her, who is divorced, commits adultery. His disciples said to him, If such is the case of the man with his wife, it is better not to marry. But he said to them, All cannot accept this saying, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born thus from their mother's womb, and there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He who is able to accept it, let him accept it. Then little children were brought to him, that he might put his hands on them and pray. But the disciples rebuked him. But Jesus said, Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid his hands on them and departed from there. Now behold, one came and said to him, Good teacher, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? So he said to him, Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. But if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments. He said to him, Which ones? Jesus said, You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and your mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, All these things I've kept from my youth. What do I still lack? Jesus said to him, If you want to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then Jesus said to his disciples, Assuredly, I say to you, that it is hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And again I say to you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. When his disciples heard it, they were greatly astonished, saying, Who then can be saved? But Jesus looked at them and said to them, With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Then Peter answered and said to him, See, we have left all and followed you. Therefore, what shall we have? So Jesus said to them, Assuredly, I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses, or brothers, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. Chapter 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. Now when he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the 3rd hour, and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said to them, You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you. So they went. Again he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing idle, and said to them, Why have you been standing here idle all day? They said to him, Because no one hired us. He said to them, You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right you will receive. So when evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to his steward, Call the laborers, and give them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. And when those came who were hired about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. But when the first came, they supposed that they would receive more, and they likewise received each a denarius. And when they had received it, they complained against the landowner, saying, These last men have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen. Now Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples aside on the road and said to them, Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and deliver him to the Gentiles, to mock and to scourge and to crucify, and the 3rd day he will rise again. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, What do you wish? She said to him, Grant that these 2 sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand and the other on the left, in your kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They said to him, We are able. So he said to them, You will indeed drink my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were greatly displeased with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." Now as they went out of Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, 2 blind men sitting by the road, when they heard that Jesus was passing by, cried out, saying, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David." Then the multitude warned them that they should be quiet. But they cried out all the more, saying, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, Son of David." So Jesus stood still and called them and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said to him, "Lord, that our eyes may be opened." So Jesus had compassion and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. Chapter 21. Now when they drew near Jerusalem and came to Bethpage, at the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied, and a colt with her. Loose them, and bring them to me. And if anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord has need of them,' and immediately he will send them." All this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, lowly and sitting on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey." So the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them. They brought the donkey and the colt, laid their clothes on them, and set him on them. And a very great multitude spread their clothes on the road. Others cut down branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then the multitudes who went before and those who followed cried out, saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he had come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, "Who is this?" So the multitude said, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth of Galilee." Then Jesus went into the temple of God, and drove out all those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers, and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, "It is written, My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." Then the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple and saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant and said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes, have you never read, Out of the mouth of babes and nursing infants you have perfected praise." Then he left them and went out of the city to Bethany, and he lodged there. Now in the morning, as he returned to the city, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the road, he came to it and found nothing on it but leaves, and said to it, "Let no fruit grow on you ever again." Immediately the fig tree withered away. And when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, "How did the fig tree wither away so soon?" So Jesus answered and said to them, "Assuredly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what was done to the fig tree, but also if you say to this mountain, 'Be removed and be cast into the sea,' it will be done. And whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive." Now when he came into the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people confronted him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" But Jesus answered and said to them, "I also will ask you one thing, which, if you tell me, I likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, where was it from? From heaven or from men? And they reasoned among themselves, saying, If we say from heaven, he will say to us, Why then did you not believe him? But if we say from men, we fear the multitude, for all count John as a prophet. So they answered Jesus and said, We do not know. And he said to them, Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. But what do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not. But afterward he regretted it and went. Then he came to the second and said likewise. And he answered and said, I go, sir. But he did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father? They said to him, The first. Jesus said to them, Assuredly, I say to you that tax collectors and harlots enter the kingdom of God before you. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But tax collectors and harlots believed him. And when you saw it, you did not afterward relent and believe him. Hear another parable. There was a certain landowner who planted a vineyard and set a hedge around it, dug a winepress in it, and built a tower. And he leased it to vine dressers and went into a far country. Now when vintage time drew near, he sent his servants to the vine dressers that they might receive its fruit. And the vine dressers took his servants, beat one, killed one, and stoned another. Again he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did likewise to them. Then last of all he sent his son to them, saying, They will respect my son. But when the vine dressers saw the son, they said among themselves, This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and seize his inheritance. So they took him and cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those vine dressers? They said to him, He will destroy those wicked men miserably, and lease his vineyard to other vine dressers, who will render to him the fruits in their seasons. Jesus said to them, Have you never read in the Scriptures, The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone? This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a nation bearing the fruits of it. And whoever falls on this stone will be broken, but on whomever it falls, it will grind him to powder. Now when the chief priests and Pharisees heard his parables, they perceived that he was speaking of them. But when they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitudes, because they took him for a prophet. Chapter 22. And Jesus answered and spoke to them again by parables, and said, The kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son, and sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. Again he sent out other servants, saying, Tell those who are invited, See, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready. Come to the wedding. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest seized his servants, treated them spitefully, and killed them. But when the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Then he said to his servants, The wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all whom they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he saw a man there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Then the Pharisees went and plotted how they might entangle him in his talk. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are true, and teach the way of God in truth, nor do you care about anyone, for you do not regard the person of men. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, "Why do you test me, you hypocrites? Show me the tax money." So they brought him a denarius, and he said to them, "Whose image and inscription is this?" They said to him, "Caesar's." And he said to them, "Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." When they had heard these words, they marveled, and left him and went their way. The same day the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him, saying, "Teacher, Moses said that if a man dies, having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there were with us 7 brothers. The first died after he had married, and having no offspring, left his wife to his brother. Likewise the second also, and the third, even to the 7th. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had her." Jesus answered and said to them, "You are mistaken, not knowing the Scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels of God in heaven. But concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob'? God is not the God of the dead, but of the living." And when the multitudes heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him, and saying, "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets." While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, saying, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "How then does David in the Spirit call him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool'? If David then calls him Lord, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day on did anyone dare question him any more. Chapter 23. Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples, saying, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their phylacteries broad and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by men, 'Rabbi, Rabbi.' But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Christ. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore you will receive greater condemnation. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you travel land and sea to win one proselyte, and when he is won, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, Whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple, he is obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifies the gold? And whoever swears by the altar, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gift that is on it, he is obliged to perform it. Fools and blind, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Therefore, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by all things on it. He who swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And he who swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits on it. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done, without leaving the others undone. Blind guides, who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you cleanse the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of extortion and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first cleanse the inside of the cup and dish, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous, and say, If we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore you are witnesses against yourselves that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up, then, the measure of your father's guilt. Serpents, brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation of hell? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Chapter 24. Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming, and of the end of the age? And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, and the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household, to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. Assuredly, I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and at an hour that he is not aware of, and will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Chapter 25. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be like unto 10 virgins, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, lest there should not be enough for us and you, but go rather to those who sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take the talent from him, and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to every one who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? when did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick, or in prison, and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Chapter 26. Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples, You know that after 2 days is
I returned from a place of great evil, where suffering fills the streets. The gilded few live sheltered lives while chewing on succulent meats. When I arrived, I sought a kind soul who could take my coin for the night. To my surprise, a guard on patrol had me arrested on sight. I sat and moiled in that dank cell. I wondered and worried, what was my crime? In anguish and sorrow I wept and I yelled, and lost all accounting of time. Once a day they fed me an evil slop, tasteless starch, wet and gray. Too crude to eat, my spirits dropped, but I lived to tribunal day. I was led into a great chiseled dome. Judges in cloaks eyed my poor robes, said I could not do my business alone. I had to find lodging with someone I know. But I am a traveler, I had to cry. I know no soul who lives in this place. The judge looked up to catch my green eyes and silence my wails with a cast of his face. I slunk out to the marketplace. A captain looked up as if he well knew my previous tortures showed in my face. If I didn't want more, I should vacate his view. I implored every stranger I saw, but all just ignored my obvious pleas. As curfew approached, I fled those great walls, preferring to sleep in the damp with the fleas. And here I return, half starved and half drowned, but never again will I leave. To avoid all the evils of cities and towns, our right should be followed to show we believe. The old ways are best, this I have learned, so bring out your sickle and robes. Just one sacrifice left and favor is earned, and once more our harvest will grow. And once more our harvest will grow. And once more our harvest will grow. Alice the piper with homestead behind him scratched at the horns that grew from his head, put hoof to the soil to travel and toil deep into country where towns to paint red. and he rolled down the road at a good steady pace to escape from the worries he'd left in that place where piping caused fighting in mixed company, and a sensitive bard, not a hoplite was he. So head to the tavern and strum your cathar, for Thales the piper has come from afar to put each of us properly under the bar. A carouser quite fit to be written in stars. From outside the islands come many strange guests that a king or a lord may need to be set. Hospitality dictates we must show respect, and music and drinking are only correct. Ladies whose properties started great wars might come for a holiday, fleeing such bores, so they might need an escort free from our moors. A talented piper our court must implore, so head to the theater and bring your cathar, for Thales the piper has come from afar to put even this diplomat under the bar. A carousal, I'm sure, to be written in stars, up from the sea or in caverns below. Older than legend, lost terrors grow, up to Olympus where the sacred we know deserve at the least a good piping show. True heroes adventure like furies obsessed, never to settle, to give up and rest, though keen enough bronze can solve many quests. For Titan straight fighting might not be the best, so head to Olympus, we need your cathar, for Thales the piper has come from afar to put even the Titans under the bar. A carousing that fate would see written in stars. Head to Olympus, we need your cathar, Thales the piper has come from afar to put even the Titans under the bar. A carousing that fate will see written in stars. Jade fade beyond sight as we peer in obsidian hall. Fragments of refuse, chalky and white, surround the strewn bones by the sacrifice wall. Runes from a time too old to be known are carved in the green malachite. They showed the first seeds Gaia gave to be sown to bestial progenitors in primeval light. The surroundings are grave, but the wall stretches on, and it tells how the first trees took hold to flourish for aeons before that red dawn, where dark brine and ruin brought horror untold. There the script changes, jagged and raw, as if a new hand went to carve. But this syntax is strange and follows no law. After that any story is pieces and shards. Runes come to an end, the mural comes in, and the sacrifice shown in detail. The cowled-horned priest who brought the herd in, marks on the bones show what that entailed. Our party is shocked, we back toward the door, but the portal is covered by bars. Obsidian Hall comes to life with a roar. There stand druids with sickles and grotesque cathars. They strum out the notes that bring madness to bear. My comrades fell in with bare hands, possessed and transformed by some curse in the lair. My friends were no longer quite woman or man. Since then I've been trapped in this windowless cell. I cannot know why I was spared. I know I look ragged, I fear for my health. I beg for my freedom, I crave the fresh air. Let me out, just open the door. Please, my fair strangers, free me from this place. I can't stand the howls that come from the floor. Let me out, or I'll gnaw off your face. Let me out, or I'll come for you all and take your dead bones to feed the great wall. Let me out, 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 let me out. The great scaly beast stood and he faced the waters that burst from the dam. As he channeled his magic, the wall was replaced. He was blasted by cheers from town woman and man. And we gather to thank the great sky for its gifts, for this gaudy and solid and strong. Rather than graves for our drowned goats and kids, our warden he rose to protect us from wrong. He roamed far and wide with a party of legend. Many were saved, but his friends had to pay. He put sorrow aside and instead tried to mend. He looked for a village who had need of his ways. Any hole could be plugged with a stout enough cork. Any dike could be mended and smoothed. He'd help mighty and rich or the impoverished short. As he knew he was needed, his ravaged heart soothed. And we gather to thank the great sky for its gifts, for this gaudy and solid and strong. Rather than graves for our drowned goats and kids, our warden he rose to protect us from wrong. For he came to our village, our backwater ditch, and he saw what great misery we kept. Our bedrock would constantly roil and shift. Because of this curse, we died and we wept. In our land he found holes that couldn't be plugged, and dams that couldn't be fixed. And he knew he was needed. With a great tortile shrug he settled, and now we can safely exist. And we gather to thank the great sky for its gifts, for this gaudy and solid and strong. Rather than graves for our drowned goats and kids, our warden he rose to protect us from wrong. And we gather to thank the great sky for its gifts, for this guardian solid and strong. Rather than graves for our drowned goats and kids, our warden he rose to protect us from wrong. Gather, good people, the young and the old, to hear of a traveler daring and bold. He served in the wars in a great naval fleet, with cudgel and girdle and wings on his feet. They say he was born of a god or a nymph, left as a babe on a pedestal's plinth. Only the blessed had such speed and such skill, and never was seen a boy with more will. Centaur and harpy cower in fear as our hero draws near. Foes ready their spears, but he runs in with haste, and they look on his face and see that his spirit is marked by the fates. If he comes by a cyclops, furious and red, who threatens to crush his bones into bread, our hero relies on the shape of his brain and attempts every parting with minimal pain. He knows in the past these giants were tricked, robbed of their flocks, blinded with sticks. He thinks for the grace of the gods stumble I, so even to monsters he's humble and kind. Centaur and harpy cower in fear as our hero draws near. Foes ready their spears, but he runs in with haste, and they look on his face and see that his spirit is marked by the fates. When the boy became man, with chest toned and broad, he crafted a plan to find goddess or god that left him alone with such spirit and need. He beseeched the blind poet and followed each lead. So he came to the briny caves close to the sea, and saw who had spawned his divine destiny. a 20-limbed kraken with human-like hands. Though he buckled in horror, he'd soon understand. Centaur and harpy cower in fear as our hero draws near. Foes ready their spears, but he runs in with haste, and they look on his face and see that his spirit is marked by the fates. His sire or dame, he wasn't quite sure, pointed him to a shallow pool carved in the floor, and he saw as he peered in that burbling ooze, the truth of his birth was no longer confused, and he knew that he must learn and come back and teach each of his siblings, whether tadpole or leech. And he knew why he feared not what old laws forbid. Things are less fearful when your mother's a squid. Squid. Put hope in the seals to hold us through. Have faith that the keel holds up on you. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. It's been barely a week since we left the safe harbor to rescue the sacrifice tied to the rock. Though we killed the sea snake, our sailcloth was raked, and the wind was too mighty to row back to dock. Put hope in the seals to hold us through. Have faith that the keel holds up on you. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. The strain will bring end to the rostrum and rudder if we fail to contend this murderous storm. We've got just one hope in this barrel of rope. Tie pillar to pillar, put shoulder to oar. Put hope in the seals to hold us through. Have faith that the keel holds up on you. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. Though close, we must pass through the crushing stones that can render our ship into planks. We have to go fast if we want to get past. Pull lookout, we need every rower in rank. Put hope in the seals to hold us through. Have faith that the keel holds up on you. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. Put hope in the seals to hold us through. Have faith that the keel holds up on you. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. Put oar to the brine, beat the drum double time. This barge is a wreck, but it must make do. In a city of cowards, a shady man waits. Ladies in powder selling off dates. Sweet fruit for the harvest at excellent rates. A man from the mountains looking for gold. A plan hashed by the fountain for treasures of old. Artifacts for the harvest by adventurers bold. Head to the bay where privateers rest, a captain to challenge in combat and best, and a crew that wants more than just gold in a chest. And these men have an excellent plan to ascend the dead hills where the steppe nomads dance, and portend what they will from their drug-induced trance. Protect innocents captured to finish a plan by a sinister man who works so he can talk to gods, never dying, but dreaming and scheming and trying to bring dust to the land. give stall, but they strive through the brine, a pursuit to the tower, arriving on time. A road madman stands, dagger in hand, but cannot withstand the mountainous man from the mountains who landed and ended the plans to bring old gods and chaos, turn castles to sand. They returned and commanded the gates to be sealed, renew the old deals, give the world time to heal, keep the gates locked and maintain the zeal, for a world still in shock is an excellent meal, for chaos and madness which must be repealed by trial and error and belief in the real. Enjoy our hospitality, our beds and bread and wine, to sleep and heal, our warmth to feel and worship our divine. Welcome here, my traveler, through rain or hazing sun, to work or trade our fields or stalls and feast when evening comes. Enjoy our hospitality, our breads and bed and wine, to feel at home although you roam is the gift of our divine. The roads are paved and safe to walk, guarded day and night. Scripts are saved to be read or taught, to know is its own delight. Enjoy our hospitality, our wine and breads and beds. Though you may leave, you'll always grieve for the life you could have here instead. Our walls are strong, our laws are fair, and they show us how to live. We all belong in each other's care, with just one life to give. Enjoy our hospitality, our sacramental wine. After one more night in the dead moon's light, you'll be born again divine. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. Our cities were built with her blessing divine by shepherds who heard her burbling call. She showed how the heavens moved over time, and with practice we spread that knowledge to all. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. The magi are nothing without River Mother, but when learned travelers come from the west, they walk past the shrines and don't bathe in the water, instead rubbing grease on their faces and chests. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. We humor the men who risk such far travel, who covet our secrets for their fine polity. Cities where women are locked up like cattle, and most of the men live in bare poverty. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. We tell them the tales we reserve for such fools, easy to check with patience and time, but philosophers fail to harness such tools, preferring instead what sounds the most fine. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. But you, my friend, are not such a stranger. You've heeded her call with clear heart and mind. Dive in the pool, push past the danger, and you'll share in peace as only we find. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. Anahita, mother of water, feeds the rivers, the brooks, and the springs. The naiads are her chosen daughters, and the sea god brings her corals and rings. The tale of a brave and noble wanderer who fell into a place not known by men for years, a place underground, older than time or longer, growing in our terrors and our fears. He played a golden lyre, had a voice of the stars. He trekked the world by boat, moving near and far, blessed by the gods. Thousands heard his voice. The world moved when he made that fabled choice. He joined the ranks of a famous noble vessel, manned by a crew of 50 heroic men, the son of a god, men who hunted and wrestled, some of which were never seen again. He angered the gods, and their vengeance slew his lover, a deadly nest of snakes, and left her body cold, though he knew in his heart he could never love another, and hatched a plan both foolish and bold. He played a golden lyre, had a voice of the stars. He trekked the world by boat, moving near and far, blessed by the gods. Thousands heard his voice. The world moved when he made that fabled choice. For years, looking for the entrance that would take him to the darkness under the earth, braving deadly perils and a guardian immense to prove to the king and queen his worth. He moved their frozen hearts with his beautiful song. They granted him to leave with his lover and wife if he didn't look behind as he traveled along. They would restore her soul and her life. He played a golden lyre, had a voice of the stars. He trekked the world by boat, moving near and far, blessed by the gods. Thousands heard his voice. The world moved when he made that fabled choice. Alas, curiosity proved to be his downfall. He tried to steal a glance to see if the god spoke true. She disappeared in seconds with a sorrowed, haunting call, just as the earth's green meadows were in view. And so ends the tale of our brave and noble wanderer, who tried and failed to bring his love back to the sun. The only chance to restore his true love he squandered, and in that valley his life was undone. Historicus stood and looked at his work, volumes of all of the lore on the earth, a lifetime of labor for his hoplites and serfs, all the servants and scribes his vast treasures could feed. He paged through the volumes that he couldn't read. His scribes had translated and sated his needs, but he knew that the books were the greatest indeed, or so he'd been told by his huddled elites. So he summoned his guard, and the wagon was leashed, and a score of apprentices gathered beneath, with their tablets appended to defend against grief, for their lord could bring praises or scolds. He hiked up his robe of linen and gold, and gazed at his consort who had dared to grow old. He heaved towards the wagon, and without being told, his caretakers moved in to help. But for once he deferred, he'd do it himself. Though a noble, well-bred, he was in perfect health. So he swung up his leg and missed, and he yelled and tried to grab on to his staff. But his bulk was too great, and he stumbled and crashed, and there on the ground, with his saged head cracked, as he lay there and faded, he sputtered and laughed. For once he had done his own work. Came down from the hills and camped in the pond that sits mirror still. Spoke to the clod and the beaked and the billed, and rejoiced for her life was fine. Out from the city came a sensual man, sent out from the temple to act on a plan. The queen of the city took with forceful hands any she wanted to share of her wine. So the harlot he stopped and drank from the pool. His throat clicked and locked to feel the barb cruel. The wilder woman held out to his neck, but he won out her mercy and asked her direct. Lie with me, woman, and put down your spear. Let me take your sorrows and heartbreak and fears. Take of my spirit, take all that you need. My body is here to follow your lead. After 7 and 7 vivid nights that they laid, the wilder woman grew newly afraid. The beasts were now fearful of her touch and her gaze, and she wept at what she had lost. The man saw her tears and softened the pain. He pulled out the beetles and moss from her mane. He spoke of the city and why he had came, and wept at what it had cost. So through 2 more weeks they mingled and talked, wore breeds into sandals with smooth river rocks, tanned hide of a lion for girdle and cape, and walked close together to the great gates. Come out, great queen, and fight a true foe. Don't pilfer the husbands of your women folk. I lost to you humans my tie to the land. So come out, dear monarch, and die by my hand. And out came the queen, in a battle they clashed. 10 seasons they grappled and throttled and lashed. While they struggled, the city trained enforcers unmatched. By the time they collapsed, the queen was dethroned. After waking, both realized just what they had gained. Finding another so strong and untamed, they decided for glory in the great city's fame, to rove and bring great riches home. And they went on their journey, now etched in the stars. The harlot was mournful and wandered afar, and though his adventures are less widely known, he would tell of his lover wherever he roamed. She came from the mountain and sang like the birds, a song of such beauty few mortals have heard. Though our cities will grow to height yet unseen, I mourn for the wilderness robbed of its queen. Sweet sings the siren over salt water foam. The sailors who took me so far from my home are raving and screaming and clawing their ears, trying to block out the song that they hear. Though I hear the singing, ringing and clear, my heart is not captured by longing or fear. I wait for my jailer to rush to the fray with the singers as cover. I steal away, though late in the night, without the sun's rays. I hurry my flight while my captors are dazed. But enough of the stars peek through the veil, and I follow with ease the Milky Way's trail. Though I'm born from the stars and I walk on the wind, I still have to hobble through sorrow and sin. Creatures and vagabonds swarm for my light, to keep like a jewel, to warm them at night. I watch the Sphinx leave and stare at my palm. Though her fortune held evil, my heart is still calm. After fortnights of riddles and terrible tests, old questions were answered, and air floods my chest. For leagues out to Stygia, the song could be heard. Over mountains and oceans echoed each word. After service and solitude, as treasure or slave, I'd live in no harem, adorn no king's grave. Though I'm born from the stars and I walk on the wind, I still have to hobble through sorrow and sin. Creatures and vagabonds swarm for my light, to keep like a jewel, to warm them at night. Though I'm born from the stars and I walk on the wind, I still have to hobble through sorrow and sin. Creatures and vagabonds swarm for my light, to keep like a jewel, to warm them at night. I the red pulse and glow and the hammerheads blow, our destiny pulled from the ground. With for crucibles cracked and our calamine brass. No longer will we be held down. Well, the fates may decree that we speak blasphemy when we choose to be free of their web. But our sisters deny that we have to die for the sins of the heaven-cursed dead. Rise against the heaven sent to keep us meek and low. The lies that warped our hooves and skin have kept us down below, as if it was hubris to want to be fed. Put clothes on our children or sleep in fine beds. If gods were so great, we'd already be dead. Our people have paid more than you know, so we bided and planned and brought in more hands. We had spies in the ranks of their priests. Over oceans and sands we reached foreign lands and readied ourselves to rise from beneath. The foreigners came and clashed in our name. Cunning cowled cowards fled their great stones. The triumphant remained and new kingdoms were laid by the victors who'd won their new homes. We rose against the heaven sent to keep us meek and low. We know that with their evil spent, our kingdom will still grow. Though they came from outside, they helped us to be free, to mold and to shape our own destinies, to watch the old gods turn tail and flee. Our people have won more than you know. Thundering chariots bound down the track, necks are all craned to leer at the race. A poor urchin girl selling fruit from a sack. A spectator reads, the juice smears his face. Back on the track, a horse's leg breaks. The chariot flips and screams can be heard. The crowd is excited and for the show's sake, the other contestants each race undeterred. Is this why we quarried the stone? To build massive temples to our new divine. The keystones were laid by people alone. No creatures but us built this great chiseled shrine. My head starts to ache as the ritual starts. I pray to the goddess of wisdom and rhyme. The words leave my mouth with an ache in my heart. I drone with dull tone each scripted line, though I witnessed ascension and healings. And I've lived enough time to know what we've gained. As my years grow greater, so does the feeling. No goddess of wisdom would sanction these games. Is this why the old theaters fell? Were cooked fire stories so savage and poor without teaching the past? How can we tell if it's monster or goddess that we supplicate for? The forums are filled with chaos and blame, and many have gathered our help to beseech. The soldiers take bribes, and without any shame, they threaten the farmers, dismiss them as weak. So the polity riots, and I have to agree, though I've spent my whole life under vows. If my goddess exists, she's blind to our needs. Nothing holy or mortal will keep us low now. This is how we'll drive our fate. No out-of-touch gauntlet will again be revered. We'll raise our own people who have proved themselves great, and never again will we bow to our fear. He shucked the shell from the mussel, gobbled the meats and smiled and thought of the tubers and greens he had rustled to roast up with beets and steep in a sauce. For days he had wondered and wondered pondered and plundered, larders for lard, but he pondered too hard and hungered again, and so he restarted his feast without end. He napped in the bristles while whistled by bolts and other such missiles, launching or logged some battle or siege or bloody revolt. He finished his meal and started to nod. After so brief a nap of hardly a day, he awoke in a red battlefield. He thought of the visceral waste and decay, but just for a minute, then looked for a meal. For weeks he had wandered and wondered, pondered and plundered, larders for lard, but he pondered too hard and hungered again, and so he restarted his feasts without end. Well, something had always confused him. Others abused him, but he just didn't bleed, or let in the spear tips to puncture his skin. He wondered why others felt such want and need. If you really love life, do like him, just don't die. Maintain your mask and deeply breathe in. He tried to tell folk, just refused to comply. If a psychopomp visits, send him to kin. For years he had wandered and wondered, pondered and plundered, larders for lard, but he pondered too hard and hungered again, and so he restarted his feast without end. For years he had wandered and wondered, pondered and plundered, larders for lard, but he pondered too hard and hungered again, and so he restarted his feast without end. Like a river we flow, and like barley we grow, to reach for the light of the sun. By the burbling brook and the oaths that we took, to unite and face shadows as one. When I saw you at first, I took no special heed, as you led in the flock from the hills. But when tragedy struck and you rose to our needs, my murmuring heart pushed my faltering will. Like the mountains we stand, and like titans we plan, to push against dire designs. Amidst blossoms of gold, with our futures untold, we merge and mix water and wine. As we raised up our children and guarded the flocks, the tribes of the Iron Man swelled. By truncheon or pike, by arrow or rock, one by one we were pushed towards hell. Like the great winds we howl, and we rake like the owl, who terrifies creatures that creep. If we die in our flight, at least we gave fight, and refused to go softly to sleep. But the man-creatures ran, and we breathed with relief, though steep was the price that we paid. Filly and full were screaming in grief, 10 score were the gravestones we laid. Like a river we flow, and like barley we grow, to reach for the light of the sun. By the burbling brook and the oaths that we took, to unite and face shadows as one. Like the mountains we stand, and like titans we plan, to push against dire designs. Amidst blossoms of gold, with our futures untold, we merge and mix water and wine. There stands is here a grove where the goddess still reigns. The passing is matched by trial and game, sprinting and hurdles, discus and ball, to greet the new king as his twin brother falls. To mark the pass of the waning year, athletes gather and priests draw near, with sprigs of cypress and mistletoe. The old must die for new to grow. Hey, oh, hey, the ivy and spruce finish the ritual, bring a new dawn. Dance and play and relish the truce between river and rock, cougar and fawn. The running of maidens through Appian Way starts off the games and the king's final day. Children throw flowers, the crowd is a roar. Their feet end up bloody, but pain is ignored. As the Vestal race closes, the first feast begins. A stout satyr waddles with wine on his chin. He opens his throat and velvet notes spring, as if the Green Mother herself were to sing. Hey, oh, hey, the alder and spruce finish the ritual, bring a new dawn. Dance and play and worship the truce between Titan and Godlings, the wolf and the fawn. As the banquets continue, the grapplers walk in, anointed in oil, clad only in skin, to wrestle and struggle and exhibit their skill, a true test of strength, constitution, and will. Hey, oh, hey, pomegranate and spruce, finish the ritual, bring a new dawn. Just today we honor the truce between secrets and wisdom, lion and fawn. Discuses flung from dizzying spins, javelins thud as their heads splinter in. Targets and straw are retrieved for the stage, to build up the flame that will bring a new age. Hey, oh, hey, serpent and spruce, finish the ritual, bring a new dawn. Eternity gazes and blesses our truce between power and ignorance, tiger and fawn. Fully prepared and enduring his rights, the waning king sits as they sharpen the knife. He remembers ascension and his long year was grand, as he readies the crescent moon scepter in hand. Hey, oh, hey, barley and spruce, the ritual's done, we gaze at the dawn. Eternity kneels, blessing our truce between chaos and order, Venus and fawn. Hey, oh, hey, barley and spruce, the ritual's done, we gaze at the dawn. Eternity kneels, blessing our truce between chaos and order, Venus and fawn. I went to the mountain where the maiden sits with her bow, amidst the groves of cypress. I begged her for to know. I said, maiden, will you tell me what is on my woman's mind? Can I slay a boar or harpy to put our offering behind? She laughed and left me standing, wondering what I could have said, and to my shame demanding, I hung my weeping head. I went to the mountain where the mother sat and wove, with kids cooing and crying, and a pot hot on the stove. I said, Mother, can you tell me why my woman scorns me so? Can I bring her a fleece or a flying steed, so that she'll let me know? She smiled and turned to her children calling each of them to heel. She too ignored my question, but shared with me their meal. I went to the mountain to beseech the grizzled crone, who sits with snakes and mushrooms in a gray old shack alone. I said, crone, can you tell me why my woman shames me so? Though I speak clear and loud, I feel shamed and not proud. I'd kill Titan or Hydra to know. She cackled and then said to me in words so clear and sharp, did you try asking directly before this journey starts?